Hello everyone, this is Professor Reha, Chief Information Officer of Clan Indigo Oni, here with gaming news, and I want to talk about AOC's stream for a bit. I want to talk about why it was so successful that nobody I saw when I researched was talking about, and also why she chose to stream Among Us, and finally what I think this is going to mean for Twitch and video games in the future in the political sphere. I'm going to put this out with two forewords. The first one is I am not particularly political. I don't support either side, so I'm not here to preach any particular party or any particular political motive, whatever. I'm not really political enough for that. I'm just here to talk about how it affects gaming and why it was so successful, because nobody else is really talking about that. So, on to the main point of the video. Oh, the second forward, I almost forgot. The second forward I would like to point out is, with most of the political sources that I saw and used for my research, I did notice that they had a overwhelming tendency to refer to younger voters as essentially anyone under the age of 35. So when I say younger voters, I'm talking 35 and under. Whether or not you agree with this is entirely up to you. I'm just using the terminology that was consistent throughout most of the sources that I utilized for this. So with that being all out of the way, let's get into why I think her stream was so successful, since not a whole lot of people are really talking about the why it was so successful, just that it was. Now, the first thing that needs to be addressed is that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and there are way more people on Twitch right now than there normally would be. People have lost their jobs, and they're going on Twitch for entertainment, and there are also people who are choosing to stay at home and watch Twitch instead of going out and shopping or what have you, because they don't want to get infected. So those are the two reasons why people are primarily at home. That didn't really need to be said, but no one's really talking about the fact that there are extra eyes on Twitch than there normally would be. So she picked a really good time to attempt to spread a political message on Twitch. Now, I would like to address specifically the political message, which did have something to do with why it was so popular. You see, her message during the stream was not biased towards either party. It was simply, please go out and vote. That was it. Both parties are trying to get people to vote because according to their statistics, they believe that younger voters generally tend to not vote as frequently as older voters. So there is a genuine concern in all politicians across the board that younger people just aren't going to be out voting. So both sides are attempting to drum up interest in voting, and that was really the point of her stream, was to try to get people to vote. Therefore, with this basically bipartisan message, regardless of which side you came from, there wasn't really any room for criticism of her message, since both sides agree on it. And she wasn't also likely to get any kind of backlash from any supporters of either political party either, since again, her message was completely either bipartisan or nonpartisan, depending on how you look at it, so there wasn't really any room there to criticize her from a political standpoint. Now, another factor that really helped, and this one was actually fairly addressed, is that she is a member of the younger generation of voters. She's 31, so she falls right in that under 35 range, and she does at least to some extent understand where a lot of us are coming from, at least to some extent. Obviously, everybody's life is different, everyone's struggles are different, but she can at least understand some of the commonalities people under the age of 35 have gone through, what with how growing up has been in America for the past 35 years. So she at least can meet us halfway on that particular point, which is something that no other politician who's tried Twitch has really been able to do. So those are really primarily the three reasons why her stream was so successful and not particularly toxic. Now, I would like to discuss why I believe she chose Among Us. Now, for those of you who say, oh, she just chose one of the more popular games on Twitch, yes, Among Us is absolutely popular, but it's not the most popular. If she were going in terms of pure popularity, she would have chosen Phasmophobia, which is the big game on both YouTube and Twitch the last time I checked, which was last week, when I originally began researching this. So if she was going for simply pure popularity, she would have chosen to go with Phasmophobia. I think she chose Among Us because it features very specifically a voting system, so that would allow her to get her message across without necessarily being overbearing or annoying about it. She could mention voting every time that there came up a vote if she hadn't mentioned it recently, and she could talk about voting a little bit each time. So it was a really smart choice from that perspective. Now, she also had, I'm sure, some reservations. She did tweet out before actually planning on doing this, I'm sure. I'm not sure when she planned to do this, but she did throw out a tweet that asked, hey, I'm planning on streaming on Twitch with Among Us to talk about people voting. Would anybody be interested in joining? And some big names from Twitch, or some bigger names from Twitch, depending on your perspective, messaged her back and said, sure, let's stream together. So there was a certain amount of draw from some of the bigger Twitch names on the platform playing with her that drew some of the audience, but their positive response, and nobody's particularly negative response, did kind of signal to her that it would have been okay to do this on Twitch, and it wouldn't have been that weird from a cultural standpoint. It's not like she's the only politician to have tried Twitch. There are others. Like I said, the other ones just weren't in the younger voter set, and they were mostly just streaming their rallies, their various live events, and there is a counter to the one criticism she did receive from fellow politicians and political analysts saying that she was basically wasting her time, but quite frankly, this is essentially the equivalent of an online rally, an e-rally, if you will. And it was no more a waste of time than any of the rallies that any presidential candidate has done in the past years. You could name any rally, and it's essentially that, but with the added benefit of everyone being at home, not having to be in danger of fights breaking out, or what have you. There's all kinds of weird things that have happened at political rallies in recent years, as we all know. So it was a much more effective way of rallying than we have ever seen before, at least successfully. Not that people haven't tried it, but she was just successful, and we've already gone over some of the reasons why. So, what does this mean for video games in general? Well, I think a couple of things. First off, I think we can finally expect to see video games become less ostracized as they have been in the past, where the occasional conservative politician would just punch at video games as the ultimate evil, that or D&D, or tabletop RPGs in general. And now, with the wild success of AOC's stream and the viability of having what are essentially e-rallies on Twitch, the perspective on gaming is going to change, where it will become, like YouTube, a potentially useful tool to stream on Twitch and get some kind of specific message across. Now, you'll notice I brought Twitch out into this, and there's a specific reason I brought Twitch out into this. I think what Twitch is going to have a problem with is the same problem that YouTube's been having for the past few years now. Instead of big businesses taking over and making hugely popular channels that are pulling viewers away from the smaller ones, which has been something of a struggle on YouTube. Twitch is going to have the same problem with politicians and big media stars doing the same thing on Twitch, where instead of the starter-out person carving their own way into the world through Twitch, it's going to be these people with already established careers and audiences streaming on Twitch and pulling a certain amount of viewers away from the people who are just trying to make their way in the world and do something that they really enjoy that maybe can help support them in these difficult times, or their personal difficult times, be they difficult emotionally or financially. And it's going to some extent to be eventually grow into a similar kind of problem. That's my expectation here. Whether or not that actually happens is going to be fairly dependent. I think there's a better chance it won't happen on Twitch, though, because I think that a lot of politicians, unless they are very selective about their topics, are going to be attacked by supporters of the opposite party, because most politicians from here on out who will be attempting the same thing likely aren't going to pick quite as non-partisan issues as simply people getting out and voting. They're going to be pushing some agenda or some platform or their party in general or whatever, and opponents of that viewpoint, of that party, or of the politician specifically are going to just go onto the stream and be very toxic, and then it becomes this very interesting question of how much politics can you really talk on a stream before it devolves into chaos if you're not extremely careful about your topic. And that's really where the ultimate question is going to lie, in terms of, well, will this work or will this not work in terms of Twitch being used as a political basis or a political platform for a campaign, be it grassroots or otherwise. So that's what I personally expect will really be seen out of politics and gaming in the future, in a combined subject. Only time will tell if politics becomes an acceptable topic on Twitch. I personally doubt it, but the possibility must be acknowledged, otherwise we could be caught unaware like we were with YouTube. With all that being said, thank you all very much for listening. If you liked this content, please like and subscribe. If not, please ignore me. I hope you have a great 24 hours.